back, ladies and gentlemen.
You should be getting this.
You should be. You Gareth Southgate, you should be. Don't tell me about Gareth Southgate. I should be bloody happy. Darling, are you over it yet or not?
I got a text yesterday saying there's 4 words that trigger Davis. Gareth Southgate, Donald Trump. They forgot David Moyes and Sam
Allardyce. That's right.
I'm absolutely, as you know, mate, I'm wrapped that he's finally gone. The one thing, I'll give him credit, was that when he came in, there was a bit of a disharmony. He brought a togetherness in that England side in the early years. But it wasn't too long. I mean, it's been at least 4 years now, in my mind, maybe longer, where you can see the quality of players that he's got and the way that he was playing and his fearful, defensive, careful way that he approaches the games. And it was just awful watching. I mean, how England made the final is beyond me. If any team didn't deserve to be there, it was England. There was other sides of play. The Swiss were far more attacking. The Austrians, there were so many more sides that played attacking football. And we had, arguably, I reckon, as man for man, we probably had better players than Spain did. But they had the right manager, the right attitude, and took it to them. They fully deserved to win. And I picked them to win it very early on after seeing a couple of games in the group games. I thought they looked the best side. So good on them, as we say down this part of the world, for doing it. But Southgate, he lost his way. You look at, and he's a real corporate man. And this is a problem with the FA.
You've said this before. They don't like the old tell, do they? Bit of this and a bit of that.
They don't like the Brian Cloughs or the old tells. And they go down, the good corporate man occasionally wears a waistcoat. He's a lovely chap, quietly spoken as Gareth. What a love. And he's got a name Gareth, which is a sort of name that we like in this sort of, environment, in this environment. But the thing is, though, is, like, what did he do? He was average at Middlesbrough. It's like, how do these geezers get the job? I've seen mentioned now as his replacement. One of the options, Frank bleeding Lampard.
Yeah, I mean, I must have. I was gobsmacked at that. I was gobsmacked that they would suggest the England women's coach at the moment. I think she's actually ensconced in her job at the moment. But Frank Lampard, again, great player, no match. Look, I wouldn't be surprised if Steven Gerrard gets mentioned, mate, in this dispatches as well. Can we just say, in Gareth's defence, though, that he took over from Sam Allardyce, who was manager for one game, was doing backhanders and dodgy deals.
100% record, Fat Sam, mate.
Fat Sam, all right.
100% record.
All right. And so what he did was he introduced stability and everything else. But there are plenty of coaches in sports all around the world, and maybe you can accuse Ian Foster of this as well. Can they get the best out of a group of players? And clearly, no, the answer is no. At the same time, mate, I texted you just before you got that equaliser, and I was convinced you were going to draw 1-1 and go to penalties. And if you'd won the tournament, everyone would be saying, oh, well, this is how you actually win a tournament. No one cares how you win a tournament.
No, it's not how you win a tournament. You might be able to scrape it through. Greece, as I've mentioned before, did it in 2004. You win it by playing football. You ever watch Brazil in 1970?
Yeah, but in 2002 they weren't good, mate. They were in 2002 they weren't good, were they? Under Big Phil.
Watch that. I mean, I was there at that quarter-final in Shizuoka, mate. England, but he had it and then just dropped their bundle.
Yeah,
exactly. There was only one team going to bleed and win it. They had Beckham in there, who was still injured and really shouldn't have been there, and he pulled out of a tackle right in front of me, and I think it's Rivaldo or whatever it was, equalised.
That was it, yeah, it was Rivaldo, yeah.
And then they got that ridiculous bloody Ronaldinho free kick. Well, David Seaman was still putting his hairspray in before it went in the back of the net. But you look at a replacement line. Obviously, I don't really care what you think, but I'll be interested in your thoughts. But it's just politeness that I do it. But if it has to be an Englishman, it's got to be Eddie Howe, not Graham Potter, not just Eddie Howe's the guy I think deserves it. If he wants to leave Newcastle, and why would you want to leave Newcastle at the moment with all that money behind you and they're playing pretty well? The other, if it's knowing the FA though, if they go for a British manager, it'll either be Sean Dyche or David Moyes. But
I'd love Moyes. I'd love Moyes just because I'd love to talk to you constantly if David Moyes was the manager, mate.
If I had the power, I would give the job to Klopp. I reckon Klopp would be a fantastic England manager.
You can't have a German. You can't have a Kraut coach in the Poms. Of course you can't, mate. Come on, son. Yeah, well, Italians a bit different. Come on. Two World Cups and one World Cup. Mate. 2 World Wars and 1 World Cup. You can't have it. Look, the thing is, Miles has got a beef against me, ladies and gentlemen, because I complained about how cold it was up here, and he texted me and he said, "You rotten, the sad little thing," and he said, "What is it? 14 degrees? It's 13 degrees, mate, and it's cold. Okay, I'm in Auckland
now." Not when I just checked up now, because I just guessed at a number, thinking you're so like. Hey, do you know why I know that, mate? Because I lived up there, and I remember when I came back down here to Wellington, how acclimatised I was to the milder climes of Auckland, and how 14 degrees is bleeding freezing.
Let's talk about Norm Hewitt. Michael Law's a wonderful interview yesterday that he did on TV. He was on the program talking about it. He's a very good friend. I mean, obviously, you know Norm as well, and you loved him as a Wellington captain, as a Hurricanes captain, and just as a giant as he was, the broken arm on the field, that Shield challenge you were at Eden Park when you hugged Leo and everything, that semi-final, remember the NPC in 2000, mate? But he was much more than a rugby player. This is what I like, has actually came out. Not a lot of people knew him outside of rugby.
No, I don't think they did. And unfortunately, a lot of people, I mean, they'll know a certain audience will know him from Dancing with the Stars, part of his road to redemption. But a lot of people remember him barging food into the wrong apartment and motel in Queenstown.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's not the guy that he was. He may have been that guy then, but it wasn't the guy who was inside, and it certainly wasn't the guy who became. And to be perfectly honest, if people can find a way of changing the way that they're behaving and change it and using it to benefit other people, as he certainly did, I think that's great. It's all right to be a saint, like me, from when you're born.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
But if you go and actually change, but if you go and change the way, and do it, which is a difficult thing to do, and accept that you had issues, and really turn it around and use it as a driving force, like he did, I think that's fantastic. And it's a really, 55 years old, Martin.
Too long, too early. Yeah, I know, it's a baby.
And to go to that horrible disease as well with motor neurone, just a really, really sad loss. And I'm sure he'll be mourned in many, many sort of areas of society in New Zealand, not just a rugby one.
We've been harping on about Origin number 3 for most of the first hour of this program. I know that...
By the way, it's maroon. It's maroon.
It's maroon, mate. It's maroon, mate. It's maroon, mate.
Okay. If you're going to talk... It's maroon to an English-speaking individual, but if you're a rugby league fan, it's a maroons.
Well, listen,
I don't know why. Maybe that's the Australian pronunciation of moron.
I know you don't buy into the rivalry and all of that because you're not from there and so forth. But just in terms of the spectacle, a decider between these two teams with all the history, all the acrimony, all the bitterness, all the little brother, all of that kind of bollocks, which is all marketing hype, and I know that. But at the same time, you've got two quality teams full of great players. I just hope tonight, and I started the show by saying, I just hope tonight it's a close contest. I just want to see that because if it is, it's going to be a brilliant game of sport to stay up for.
Yeah, well, the first two were a bit funny, wasn't it? I mean, the first one with the, it sort of blew out, and a great effort from New South Wales to come back into it. The second one, they killed them before they'd even woken up.
Yeah, it was, half time over.
Was so far ahead, it was all over. So, from a sporting spectacle, it'd be great. I think in the early days, I really bought into it, the Arthur Beetson days when, Queenslanders were treated as second-class citizens. But now, they've won titles up there, they play with each other, they're all earning big money, relatively. I don't buy into it as much. I think it's more marketing hype. But my main gripe against it is the fact that it detracts from International Rugby League, which I love. I love it. I've been to Carnival Park. I've been down to Addington in '88.
Yeah, you were there. That's right. When Gary Freeman scored,
and scored two off the bench. I was there in Australia for the Centennial.
You were there in
game,
Palmerston North nicking those balls, mate, and I remember that in 92. It was you.
No, I was there earlier. I was there earlier in Palmerston North when we lost by 1 point. I think it was 15-14 or something. And I had some hospital. It must have been 92. And I had hospitality passes. I was in the sort of marquee tent room, whatever it was afterwards. And Bill Harrigan was there, who'd been the referee. And I thought we'd had a shocking game. So I asked him, I put a piece of paper and says, "Oh, Bill, can I have your autograph?" And he signed it, and then I flipped it open because I'd written on the other side of it, folded it up, and I'd written, "I definitely cheated the Poms out of victory." and he signed it on the bottom. He signed it on the bottom. It was magnificent. Yeah.
Let's finish on Ian Botham. Why are we talking about this, people? Because today in 1993, I love these kind of stat stories in world sport. They just spring up on the diary of today in world sport and so forth. He played his last day of Test cricket. I know that you love Beefy. We both got to meet him. I got to sit next to him at a charity function. I just absolutely adored the guy. When I was in New Plymouth, I remember, and I've told you the story, going down when England were playing, and I think they were playing a New Zealand 11 when Ken Rutherford, we took him out to about 5 in the bloody morning, and Ian Botham at Pukakura Park was in the net, and I don't know who was bowling at him, but it was at lunchtime, and I just remember the sound of this ball on the bat, and it went all the way down to bloody Liardet Street, like he was hitting it seemed about 600 yards, mate. There was just something about him. We loved the swashbuckler, we loved the Jack the Lad, we loved the fact that he could bat and bowl, and he could actually win Test matches on his own, right?
Yeah, very much so. Very much. I mean, he really was one of those characters. I remember, though, when he first came into the side, would be about the mid to late 70s. And he took my hero at the time, Tony Gregg. He basically edged him out. So my initial reaction to him wasn't the greatest, but as soon as he started playing, you couldn't help but warm to him and really enjoy him. And I remember there was he was in the West Indies, and there was a bit of a kerfuffle that apparently he misbehaved to some lady.
That's right. Yeah.
But he said, "No, my father-in-law was with me." So either nothing happened, or the father-in-law was at it as well. So I've never quite I interviewed him a few years ago. He actually, out of nowhere, at Eden Park during a Test match for the members up there, and then at the end of the game, one of the management came and said, "Oh, Miles, Ian's left this for you," and he gave me a bat, 2 miles. Thanks, mate. Beefy.
Wow.
And I've still got it. It's one of my pride and joy things. I'm dreading it that my kids are going to bloody grab the bat and ruin it, because like they did with the ball that Shane Warne signed for me and the bat that I got with Kane Williamson's signature on it. Both, one lost, the other destroyed.
One final question. Who has more chance of making the 8 out of our Warriors or your Dragons?
Oh, my lot, of course, mate. More consistency.
Barely.
Of the inconsistent teams, I think we're going to have slightly the more consistent ones. Toru Harris being out for the rest of the season, I think, is a bit of a blow. But you know something? People may knock the Warriors because they're easy to knock from the public. I love them, not as much as the Dragons, but I still love them. I love their supporters. They're a great social aspect as well as sporting one to Auckland. But there's something about this side that don't write them off, is all I'll say. Just don't write them off.
Miles joins us every single Wednesday. Thank you so much for that, mate.
You should be getting this. You should be happy about that. Don't tell me what I should be bloody happy about, mate.